I so appreciate the work that's been done on this bill by the leaders of the caucus, and especially my leader, Representative Larry Cafaro. It must be stated that without his efforts, I truly believe, as bad as I may think that this bill is, I know without his work it would be much, much worse. And I struggle because I don't think a lot of the sportsmen in my community are going to understand that his hard work led to a lot of good things in the bill and kept a lot of really bad things out. But from my perspective as a freshman legislator, it's deeply, deeply troubling to me to see the process that we're taking through eCert. And while it may be true that over the course of the last 2 months, we've had 64 hours of public hearings, we have had not 1 minute of a public hearing on the specifics of this bill. In fact, I couldn't even post a link to this bill until 8 a.m. this morning for my constituents to review. I was in the office last night until after midnight reviewing draft language, and again I had to wait until 8 a.m. to review the final language of this bill. It would have been a public service to my constituents and to our state residents for a public hearing to be held before voting tonight. In fact, I probably have a much different experience with guns than anybody in this caucus. I came to it actually against guns, but when I met my husband, did not care for hunting. I've been married for almost 20 years now. I've cooked a lot of mean venison roasts in my time, and I appreciate the sportsmanship, the heritage that our sportsmen have in this state. I'm very, very concerned about the added burdens that it puts onto them, how it tears at their heart that their Second Amendment rights are being trampled on. There are many positive sections of this bill that I could support, but the overreaching issues that infringe on our Second Amendment prevent me from doing so. For example, I do not like the additional and unprecedented steps and certificates we are putting on lawful gun owners. The felony components regarding the lack of unlawful registration. The addition of ammunition certificates, even when they have a hunting license. Even when someone has a hunting license, they're going to have to get an ammunition certificate. The expansions on guns of now that are banned in Connecticut are unwieldy. I read the list this morning, and I doubt very highly that anybody in this caucus knows what every single gun is in that bill. I certainly don't. Other items in the bill I find troubling is the lack of mandated reporting requirements for mental health. We don't need a task force to put that in place. The bill, the language uses to suggest that mental health aid for teacher training not be mandatory and only be a may situation. Not just for our teachers, but for our staff and our schools. But there are good things. For instance, requiring hospitals to cover expanded mental health diagnosis, expanded background checks, stiffer penalties for gun crimes, and competitive school safety grants. But the good simply does not overshadow the bad. In addition, the OLR report dated March 5th, 2013 contains staggering statistics. This report is titled Case Statistics for Firearms-Related Offenses. For example, Madam Chair, 82% of crimes altering firearm identification marks, name or number, were nollied. 82%. 84%, through you, Madam Chair, were illegally transferred an assault weapon. We did not prosecute 84% of the crimes in this report, and yet we're continuing to add gun laws to the tally. We have other statistics. For instance, carrying a loaded firearm under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That's a pretty serious offense, don't you think? But we've nollied 86% of those crimes in Connecticut. Second-degree assault of an elderly, blind, disabled, pregnant, or intellectually disabled person with a firearm. Now that's unconscionable evil. And yet in Connecticut, we have nollied 74% of those crimes. 74%. And many other crimes in that report are shocking because they actually have 100% nollies. And we're talking about raising additional laws that we, for whatever reason, do not prosecute currently in the state of Connecticut. Considering the reality that we don't enforce those laws, I have to ask my colleagues, how will making more laws make us safer? How does someone stop a planned attack that is unprecedented? Someone who has studied other mass murderers, who kept a spreadsheet of targets, who committed at least 5 crimes in the process, who played violent video games exclusively, and finally, who would plot to murder innocent, beautiful children. Simply put, it won't. It won't stop evil people from doing evil things or criminals from committing crimes. I ask you, while giving all due respect to Sandy Hook and the families there that have been so tragic, as a mother myself of 2 children, I simply cannot support this bill, and I ask you to join me in voting no this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.